Hey everyone, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. My name's Nathan Masters, and I've been dropping a couple hints about it, but today I'm going to be talking about set 7675, the ATT Walker from 2008. As you can see, it's coming together pretty good here. This is the main frame with all 6 legs attached, so I would say I'm about halfway through the set at this point. The way I'm building this is I just have the loose pieces from my bulk lot, so I don't have the bags. I'm using the instructions online, and I'm just kind of working my way through. The first thing I did was make a list of all the parts, and I talked about this previously, so go check out those introduction videos. Today I'm going to talk about kind of where I'm at in the build, and then the second half of this video will be the completed model. So let's check out what I've got so far. So this thing is actually taking up most of my desk space, and it is a slightly smaller desk, but usually I can keep my build here in front of the monitor base, and this one is actually going onto the monitor base a little bit. So the footprint of the model is actually a lot larger than I expected. This is at least a foot across at the widest point and nearly 2 feet long from toe to toe on these feet. So it's really relying on this Technic construction frame. Going back to 2008, there's some decent techniques here for its age. But there are a couple things I've noticed as I'm building along here that really you wouldn't see in models today, just because there's either new pieces introduced that solve the problem in a better way. Certain technique actually underneath these discs, there's kind of a dead space, and these days you wouldn't see that kind of dead space. You'd actually see LEGO use a bushing to make sure that this disc didn't get pushed in too far. And the way that this is built, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Let's see if I can. Yeah, so take a look at that. These days, in a set, you would actually see a bushing there. For a 2008 set, that wasn't a main concern. It's just this 3L blue friction pin, and then you're only supposed to put the last segment into the leg. But if you don't know what you're doing, you could end up pushing this in too far and put some stress on these discs. That would be especially bad for this one, because this is one of 2 printed 6x6 discs in the set. Also, if you're looking to build this and part this out, these are the hardest pieces to find. There's 2 of these with the printed design on there, and there's 4 of these 4x4 dishes that are printed. So I was really happy to see all these dishes present in the parts as I was going through, and this is kind of what there is left. The stickers are already applied, so I mean, it's a bonus that I do have the stickers, but kind of unfortunate some of these are not applied very great. And I am missing one 2x2 tile with a sticker. All the other parts pretty much accounted for. I managed to find the instructions online, like I mentioned, and kind of working my way through. So yeah, just halfway through here, this is what's left. I've just gotten to the part of the instructions where we're going to start building the cabin, kind of the driver cockpit up at the front or the back. I think it's going to be on this side because this is where the cannons are. So this is probably the front up here. This would be the back. This will all get some plating to cover it all up, and then it's also got this lifting handle. So a lifting handle I also seen in the Imperial Republic frigate with these guys actually. So I was talking about that about a month ago, and another lifting handle in this set. This set even older than the Republic frigate. So kind of a nice feature used in these larger Technic sets, just gives you a place to lift it up and move it around. Mention here before I go on to the completed model, these legs are articulated, and this is where the 4 rubber bands come in. So just get a good look at these here before I cover it up. In their constrained position, the legs are actually fully extended to the front. When you start to put tension on the rubber band is when you put it underneath like so. So it will stay held in place by the weight of the model, but if you lift it up, that's when it wants to snap back. These middle legs do not have any rubber bands. Instead, they just rely on a couple of pivot joints. So there's actually full articulation down here at the foot, which is really nice for posing. You can get this on some terrain. And then up here at the body, it's just a simple pivot using some Technic connection. I'll pop this off real quick and take a look. I do like the construction of the legs as well, because it kind of makes it look like this hollow core construction. We've got these Technic beams at the ends, and then some of these slopes, the regular slopes and inverted slopes, giving it this illusion of a hollow core like you'd see in actual construction of tanks, aircraft, and that kind of thing, where you want to save weight as much as possible, so we're removing the middle, kind of like a larger version of our actual Technic beams. So yeah, that, like I mentioned with this pin, this hole is where you're going to go in. And you'd really like to see something put on the center section so that you don't accidentally push this in too far. But just one of those things you kind of have to know. It is a larger Lego model for 2008, so hopefully the people that bought this would be experienced enough builders to know that you don't want to push that in so far. That's really the only gripe I've got about the model so far, just in terms of building and procedures, things that you want to be aware of when you're building the model. Other than that, it's been a pretty smooth construction. 6 legs does get a little repetitive. These, basically you build 2 of these and 2 of these, and they're mirrors of each other, so very similar construction there. And then these 2 large legs are identical, so you build 2 of those. But 6 isn't too bad. It goes relatively quickly. It helps to have pieces somewhat sorted, and I do. I have my plates here. I have some other types of pieces sorted out, but not down to the individual part. Trying to balance that, that sweet spot of actually building the model and not digging through too many parts. So pretty happy with where I'm at there, and I guess let's take a look at the finished model. And the model is now completed. The ATTE Walker from set 7675. Do want to mention I'm going to be talking about just the Walker today. The set also included a little blue speeder bike for the Battle Droid, and it included some other minifigs. I do have the regular clone in the Battle Droid, but I couldn't find Anakin, Ahsoka, Rhoda the Hutt, Captain Rex, and I think that was it. So those 4, and then these 2 would be the minifigs in the set. And then the little blue speeder is the complete set. But of course the Walker is the main attraction here, so that's what I'm going to be focusing on. And I ended up finding all the pieces except for the very top part that goes up here. So let me just substitute in a brown one of those. So dark red would be all I need to finish this here. Otherwise that is the correct piece, but not in brown. We're looking for a dark red one of those. Everything else true to the original model. And it's a pretty impressive beast once it's complete. There's plenty of motion here and articulation. There's actually 4 cannons up at the front, and then 1 of the manned cannons above all of those. So these each have a pretty good range of motion. I'd like to see these be able to go down just a little bit more, but they can get up plenty high. They actually go past 90 degrees, almost towards the back of the craft. And then they have some good side-to-side range as well. Really nice feature up at the front here. When you lift up each of these side panels on this side and that side, there is a projectile that gets launched out. So that's one of these right here, and again there's one of those on each side. It does take just the right hit on each of these to launch that off. In a second I'm going to take off the side panel and we'll look at that mechanism, but kind of a fun little deal where there's actually a projectile to fire with the craft here. I did bring in the Battle Droid to show off the legs a little bit, so if I can get him to stand up here, we'll use the rubber band spring-loaded mechanism to give him a kick across the battlefield. He just doesn't stand a chance against this thing. I mean, it's easy as that. Each of the small legs has a rubber band that will give it enough of a pull to move back into the forward position. So like I mentioned, the weight is enough to keep it once it's like standing up on this. I laid down some blankets here to give the impression of the terrain that this thing would be capable of moving across, but default position is up front like that. The large legs do have that range of motion there, and the articulation at the base of the foot really helps you pose it for pretty much any stance that you would need where the ground isn't level and even. Up at the top is the gunner that can swing around. Once you push the lifting handle down, you do get 360 degrees here. Depending on where this chair comes to, you do get a little bit of elevation. It's going to hit the panel up at the front, so you don't get much maximum lift here in the forward position, but if you get it off to the side, you can actually get it up, pointed up pretty good. So side to side, you can get some nice elevation on the gun there and there. So it's nice that it can turn around completely and give you all those angles. Lifting handle right here in the center does go up and down. You move the model pretty easily. So the panels actually do a pretty good job of bringing all of the joints together. Like this lines up here pretty good, this lines up here. I think the part where it is a little more open is around the center legs, so just a little bit of extra open space in there. Not the end of the world, but it is noticeable compared to the rest of the model. The rest of the gaps closing up pretty nicely. The other opening hatches we have are front and back. So in the back hatch, there is a section that lifts out for some troop transportation. Yellow tank of something, maybe it's juice. But 4 seats here, and then these clips would be for the clones' blasters. They can carry those around the battlefield as needed. This just sets down in here on some tiles, so easy to remove, but not secured down very well. The front one also opens up, and in here we have another pretty simple canister, and the chairs in here are actually stuck down on studs. So this is the only thing that comes out of the front. And to actually open this up, it is helpful to have, well, I guess it can open up with the gun pointed forward. It just depends if you have this open. You might hit that if you have the handle lifted while you try to open that up. We did look a little bit more at the base when I had this halfway built, so I'm going to kind of skimp on that in this part. But stickers here, like I said, they are applied already. Those are all pretty much where they need to be. And they do bring some to the model, you know, this kind of detailing that you can't really get rig built. It's nice to just slap a sticker on the larger pieces and give you those kind of angles and those smaller details as well. Around here on the back, there are 2 tail guns to kind of defend vulnerabilities, but other than that, that's about all for functions. Of course, the walking function, like I mentioned, gives you a lot of versatility for posing. So the last function to take a look at is up here in the front. We'll drop down the, what would this wouldn't be called a windshield, just the driver window, I guess, opens up there, and up in the center of the driver window is room for one kind of chair unit, and this slides in. It has a little handle here that you can pull out, put a driver clone in place on the seat. You can get him to hold the levers. See if I can get those levers in his hands here. You gotta angle the hands just right. Something like that. So our driver clone, I don't think I have the correct, you'd want, there's like special markings on the helmet of some clones that actually denote the rank within the troops. I'm not familiar with all of that, but I do know that this is, being a 2008 set, probably didn't have the printing for those at the time. Maybe they did. I'll have to go back and check. Anyways, this guy slides right in here. It is a little bit taller than you would expect to accommodate that helmet, but nice that we get everything sliding in there with no hitting or anything. And then the handles here are actually going to be accommodated within the recess of the window when that closes up, like that. A little bit of a grill across here. Not familiar very well with the source material, the Clone Wars. Haven't watched a whole lot of that, so I don't know all of the details of the vehicle that this set is based on, but it probably had something up here that LEGO was trying to recreate with the fence and the grill. So that would be probably coming from the source material there. Everything else, again, with the stickers up here, really nice that we get some more detail. And then the mechanism that actually fires these. Let's get this panel off and take a look at that. So once this panel is removed, that can be done by taking the blue pin out of the red connector right there. And you can kind of see how these compound angles are formed. Get that off, we can see the mechanism in here. The projectile, old style of the projectile, is launched by these. They're kind of bulky, but it gives you enough room to have a pretty decent sized spring in the mechanism. And then traditionally, there's something going up off of these little triggers that you would pull to launch the projectile. So this is the launching trigger right here that you're going to want to pull back. So to get this to fire from within the walker itself without actually reaching down in to get to this trigger, there's a pretty clever mechanism built in that involves this hinging piece. So when you lift up here, that actually forces this arm to kind of push along the top of the launcher. So as you lift this up, that arm pushes back and actually runs into the base of the trigger. So it didn't fire the first time because if you do it really gentle, it doesn't give it enough of a kick to set the mechanism, set that release off. But if you go nice and quick, it kind of gives you more of a kick on that lever. So let's put this projectile in and see this in action. You'll have to lift this up to kind of start it off, but once it's in, you can let it go down a little bit, and that's how you can keep it from firing as you're inserting the projectile. So now it's in place. It's kind of nestled in there behind everything, and you're just going to lift up on this, and it sends it off. So again, first time didn't quite go. It took 2 hits to get that sent off. I don't know if that's just because maybe this is an older piece, it's a little bit worn out. I'd like to see this red Technic pin run into this a little bit more. Just the way that it's constructed isn't allowing it to hit that very well and give that a really good push. But 2 for 2 kind of on the launching so far, so that seems to be working okay. But yeah, that's kind of the moving mechanism up at the front. While I've got the camera in my hand here, we'll take a look at some of the other stuff up close. So we open up this here, we can see our driver. Driver actually has pretty good visibility aside from the corner columns. But you can kind of see him in there actually, it's kind of cool. We'll drop this down now and get him out. Just grab that little handle and he rides along on the 2x3 brick. Not too much room in there for other stuff. Up at the back there you could maybe get some boxes in if you wanted to haul things around. So that's our driver up at the front. All these guns are posable. This is on those little 1x2 hinge pieces is how that opens. The gunner seat up here, mounted on, it's actually kind of a specialized turntable base. It's 1 1/3 bricks high. So this is one of the pieces that's a little bit more exclusive. It isn't just found in this set, but maybe 3 or 4 sets is all that this piece comes in. So not very common here. And then the top of the turntable itself is kind of the counterpart. Not a very common piece there either, but everything else on top of that's pretty standard bricks, except for maybe this dark red piece that I can't manage to find at the moment. But yeah, you know, you just sit your clone up there and let him fire away. That opens up right there. Here's our removable container. 2 seats are of course stuck down with studs. So that's that spot right there on the back. Opens up, and now we have the entire section that moves out. We looked at that before. Nestles down in on the tiles right there. And that's really all that comes out in and out of the walker itself. So get this panel back on. And just a quick look at the panel on that Technic pin right there. And this is where these 1x2 little clips come into play. On the bottom of this, there's actually a 1x2 slope. Not very clear right here. But this notch is what we're going to aim for when we're putting this on top, and that actually kind of holds it in place. So you push it back, you give it a little bump up, and it kind of sets right in there. Lines up pretty well, and again, this is the one that has to go up and down, so that's a pretty tight seam for something that has to move. On the back, it lines up even better with our other plates. So that is 7675 ATTE Walker, a 2008 Clone Wars set. In the walker itself, there's 742 pieces, according to my Rebrickable parts list. The set itself also includes the little blue speeder for the droid and 6 minifigs, if my counting is right. So a couple more pieces in the set itself, and these days, actually going for decent money. So if you have one of these laying around and you don't really want it anymore, you could consider selling that on eBay or Bricklink. If you do want it, you should probably hold on to it because it's getting harder to find. And if you don't have it and want to pick it up, then maybe buy sooner rather than later because it's probably only going to go up in value. More of a desirable Clone Wars set, and has that Captain Rex minifig is maybe the chaser for this set here. So thanks for watching, guys, and more content on the way from Brick System Brothers coming up soon.